Hello, I know it's been a while since I've made a video on anything D&D related. It's even been a while since I made a video. But with the new Unearthed Arcana for Druid and Paladin coming out, I figured I would make a video on it. Now before I get into that, people have probably heard about, there was some controversy with Wizards of the Coast, and I was actually going to put a video out about that. But the day the video was supposed to go out, there was actually a resolution. Whether you enjoyed that resolution or not, it's up to you, but for those who don't know, essentially what happened is the OGL, which is what allows independent creators to do things with anything D&D related, for the new edition of D&D, or Wizard of the Coast was going to revoke that or change it drastically in a way that no one liked. People got very mad about this, and because of that, it actually caused Wizards of the Coast to step back on that. Now, many people are still mad at them, rightfully so. It's not a good thing to do. Having the OGL, or Open Game License, is one thing that made them very successful to begin with. But they've gone back on that now, and I still think it's important. You don't have to play D&D, you don't have to give them your money, but I, for one, am still interested in what they're doing. So on the right here, I have the new Unearthed Arcana that came out a couple days ago as of recording this, and then I have the original Player's Handbook on the left, so we can compare them. Unearthed Arcana 2023, Druid and Paladin. This document is part of this series, yes. We had Cleric last time, and then we had Rogues, something else. Can't entirely remember. Druid is the class, and Circle of the Moon subclass are ready for playtesting here. Paladin, Oath of Devotion subclass, more revised feats, new spells. Smite spells is the focus, makes sense with Paladin. Find Familiar and Find Steed, interesting. And then the rules glossary. This is playtest material, so it's not going to be perfect. It could be off power-wise, but you can still use it in your new games. Parts of a character class. So it's the primary ability, which is like the main ability score you're going to want to focus on. So, generally considered druids are wisdom spellcasters, so wisdom is important for them. Then we have the class groups. So it looks all the same still. You have 3 in each: warriors, priests, mages, experts. So this will actually finish the priests, and I believe we got all of experts. So let's have mages and warriors next. I would guess they'd go back to warriors instead of do mages last, because that probably takes the most changing or most to look at because of all the spells, but with warriors it's a little more easier. And it does say here, Artificer, although not in Player's Handbook, is also an expert. Alright, yeah, so let's start looking. Druid, Priest, Wisdom. Let's look at the table first. The progression of proficiency bonus seems to be all the same. 4th at 9th, and then +5 at 13th, and then +6 at 17th. Yep, all the same. Alright, very different. Easiest thing to notice is on the left here, there are at 3rd, 5th, 7th, 9th, 11th, 13th, 15th, 17th. There's missing features. Not missing features, there's no special feature gained. Spells may be gained, but no specific feature. But here, everything looks full. So let's see. Channel Nature, Druidic, Spellcasting, Nature's Aid, Druid subclass, Feat, Might of the Land, subclass feature, Aquatic Form, Feat, Aerial Form, subclass feature, Tiny Critter, Feat, Alternating Form, subclass feature, Wild Resurgence, Feat, Beast Spells, Archdruid, Feat, Epic Boon. Okay. Channel Nature is something new. I wonder if that's just the wild shape and they're just putting it here instead. Interesting to see, because it seems to, it follows almost exactly the same progression as a cantrip, just one above. So you get 4 at 9th instead of 10th. And, oh, interesting. So it goes 2, 2, 2, 2, and then cantrips goes to 3, and then next level at 5th, Channel Nature goes to 3, but then here at 9th, Channel Nature shifts first before cantrips. But that does appear to be the same as everything on the left. Yep, 2, 3, 4. Everything else looks to be about the same, still a 9th level spellcaster. Okay. creating a druid. Alright, hit die is a d8, 8 plus your constitution modifier, and then 5 plus constitution modifier. Interesting, they got rid of per druid level after first. Here, I wonder if they'll add that back in, or if they just found it wasn't necessary. Armor training, remember they changed the wording from proficiency to training. Light armor and shields. Light armor. Okay, so no medium armor, and there's nothing about metal being used with druids in this new version, which I don't know if anyone ever actually followed that, so I'm not sure how much that really matters. Intelligence and wisdom, yep, same thing. Choose 2 from, let's see, Arcana, animal handling, insight, medicine, nature, perception, religion, all the same there. And then weapons, simple weapons. That much simpler way, instead of typing out all these, simple weapons. I think that works well. Also get Herbalism Kit. Yep, that's still the same. Cool. And then Druidic Focus, Quarterstaff, Explorer's Pack, Herbalism Kit, Leather Armor, Shield Suit. Yep, seems about good. Interesting, every Druid who would like to will start with a sickle. It's kind of, instead of a scimitar, because it seems the focus here was scimitar, but here it's sickle. Interesting to see. And then for multi-classing, wisdom needs to be a 13. That's the same. First big thing to note, druidic is not something. Oh, right there. Well, we'll get to that. As a druid, you gain the following class features when you reach specified levels in this class. These features are listed on the druid table. So channel nature, first new thing. The magic of nature infuses you. Tapping into that power, you can create various magical effects. You start with one such effect. Oh, interesting. Wild shape, which is described below. Other druid features give additional channel nature effect options. Each time you use this channel nature, you choose which effect to create from among those you have from this class. Interesting. You can use channel nature twice. You regain on short rests. You regain 1 after a short rest, all after a long rest, and as you level up, you get more. And then spell save DC. Okay, wild shape. The magic action, which is one of the new actions. Let's pull up wild shape here. Transform into a form that you learn from this feature. You start knowing one form animal of the land. So maybe you're not transforming specifically into different creatures, whereas here you could be a wolf or a tiger or a bear. It's just land, air, sea. Interesting change. Stay in the form number else equal to half your druid level or until you wild shape, incapacitate, or die. Let's see, is that the same? Equal to half your druid level, yep. Looks to be about the same. Here, though, you can bonus action revert. I don't know if that says that here. Yep, and early as a bonus action. While in this form, its game sticks will replace yours, and your ability to handle objects is determined by the form's limbs, rather than your own. Retain personality, memories, ability to speak, and wild shape. You lose access to all your other features, such as ability to cast spells, which is also something that happened in old wild shape. I believe it was just Circle of the Moon that allowed you to cast spells, fall to the ground, or merge with you. Yep, that's the same. You also learn Druidic. Secret language of druids. Leave hidden messages. Others can spot it. Change to an intelligence investigation check when it was a wisdom perception check. Small detail. Learn to cast spells. Prepared spells is still how the class is running. And then, of course, it gives the recommendation and then says, but you can do whatever you want. You can meditate on any spell. So, yep, primal spell list for druids, not the religious one. Can't remember what it is at this point, but, yep, primal. It was arcane, primal, and something else I can't quite remember. Wisdom, druidic, focus as a spellcasting focus. Everything looks the same there. And then we have Nature's Aid, which is, I believe, a completely new thing. Yep. And of course, the subclass got bumped to 3rd level instead of 2nd, like in the player's handbook. They said they were trying to make everything more uniform. Instead of having some classes get their subclass at 1st or 2nd or 3rd, they're going to make them all 3rd and have the same progression. Okay, you learn 2 more ways to use your channel nature. Okay, Healing Blossom and Wild Companion, each of which is described below. Okay, Healing Blossom. It's a magic action. You channel healing energy that appears as blooming flowers to the point within 30 feet of yourself, and spectral flowers appear for a moment in a 10-foot radius sphere centered on that point. Then roll a number of d4s equal to your wisdom modifier, minimum of 1, and add the dice together. The total is the number of hit points you can distribute to creatures in that sphere. You decide the number of hit points that are restored to each. Okay. So a simple little automatic way to heal. And you can summon a nature spirit that assumes an animal form to aid you. As a magic action, you can expend a use of your channel nature and cast the Find Familiar spell. So that's why later in this it's detailed. They redid Find Familiar. With no material components, the Familiar is considered fey and disappears when you finish a long rest. So, very interesting here. At the highest level, you only have 4 channel natures. And 4 seems fairly low. I'm trying to remember what the highest amount in the player's handbook was. Let's see. So I haven't played a druid in a long time, or ever, possibly for that matter. Was it always 2? It could have always been 2, and then certain subclasses regained more. Okay. Well, anyways, especially at low levels such as 2nd, where you only have 2 uses, Healing Blossom, although a good healing thing if you absolutely need it, it seems kind of not useless, but you gotta be careful with it, because if you would later need either a wild companion or need to wild shape, you wouldn't have that ability if you use it for Healing Blossom, when you could just use a healing spell, but of course those are also limited. Alright, so now we have subclass. We'll come back to that at the end. 4th level feat. You can get ability score feat, or another one, Might of the Land. Your connection to the land deepens, empowering the animal of the land form. You can unlock that form's climb speed and multi-attack. Okay, interesting to see how this will work, just because we haven't gotten down far enough. Subclass feature at 6th. 7th, you learn a new form, Animal of the Sea. Okay. 8 feet. 9, you learn the Animal of the Sky. Subclass. Tiny. You gain the ability to become a tiny creature. When you transform into a wild shape form, you can make it tiny. If you do so, you stay in that form no longer than 10 minutes, and the damage you deal in that form is halved. Okay, so it definitely seems they're moving away from choosing specific creatures. Instead, you pick, and having it tied to AC. You have specific things you can wild shape into, and then based on how high level you are, you can get the water one or the flying one, and then you can become tiny. Interesting. Not sure how to feel about that, because I feel like, I don't know if you could probably flavor each form to look like a bear or something, but I feel like part of the fun for druids was picking out specific animals and then that kind of being their theme. But I guess at the end of the day, most druids would pick the optimal one, so there were probably only 5. I believe the ape was one of the best ones at low levels. So it's like they were all choosing the same one anyways. Just interesting the change they make. Feet at 12th, 13. You can now rapidly shift between a wild shape form and your normal form. If you're in a wild shape form, you can switch back to your normal form as a bonus action, and then switch back into a wild shape form within the next minute as a bonus action. Neither switch expense. Interesting. So, if you need to open a door, say, you could quickly shift back into your human, open the door or get some equipment off you or something, and then wild shape back. Just kind of like a quality of life change. I don't know if 13th might be the best, if this minute was maybe longer. Although I guess if in the middle of a fight you want to transform back, could be useful. So like if you're using the flying form to traverse your party across somewhere and you need to go back to humanoid to cast spells, I could see that being useful. 14th is subclass feature. 15th, when you use your wild shape, primal magic radiates from you, allowing you to use Healing Blossom as part of the same use. Okay, so that means every time you wild shape, you automatically Healing Blossom. I wonder if that counts. I would assume it counts for in the alternating forms when you switch back. So you could kind of just get wild shape, go back to your standard form, heal someone, and then when you go back, you could heal them again. Okay, I like that they're combining it because, especially where you only get 4 at 20th level, and Healing Blossom doesn't really seem to scale very well, because at most you could have, if you get to standard 20, that's plus 5. So you'd get 5 d4s, yeah, and especially if you're at 20th level, it's not going to do great. So I like this, but I feel like it could be even more. 16th level feat, 17th level beast spells. Now you can cast spells in any wild shape form. You can perform somatic and verbal components if you need to, but you don't need material, unless it consumes the material component. And then you can't even cast it at all, okay? Archdruid, 18th Witch. Should be the same. Archdruid, let's see. When you roll initiative, you gain 1 use of your channel nature, similar to the, in the player's handbook, the Bard 20th level feature, I believe. In addition, the primal magic that you wield causes you to age more slowly. For every 10 years that pass, your body ages only 1. So that's like a combination of Timeless Body and Archdruid. Oh, and beast spells comes a level earlier. I missed that. Interesting. And now the change from beast spells is now you can provide the material components as long as it is not consumed. Interesting. Okay, and then feat at 19th, and then 20th level, you get a feat, which would be an epic boon feat if you want it. Okay, let's go wild shape. When you use your wild shape, you transform into a form you've learned for this feature. This section includes 3 forms: animal of the land, animal of the sea, and animal of the sky. As you assume a form, you determine its appearance, selecting an example animal form from the form's description. Okay. Selecting another appropriate animal or choosing a hybrid form that incorporates visual characters from 2 or more animals. The appearance you choose has no effect on the form's capabilities. Makes sense, John. Flavor. When choosing an animal's appearance for a form, that animal needn't be the same size as the form. Okay, so an elephant for the appearance and small, or you could be I'm trying to think of a small creature, a cat and large, it looks like. An animal of the land is a flightless terrestrial animal such as bear, deer, horse, cat, dog, velociraptor, big road. Interesting they put velociraptor in here because of course dinosaurs are a part of D&D, and in the monster manual you just don't usually think of them. Well, in this form you can use the animal of the land stat block. Okay. Interesting they use the word terrestrial here and here. I wonder if that'll be a new phrase they start to use in monsters, because of course we haven't gotten any real monsters before. Creature type does not change though, so if someone were to cast hold person on you, it would still work as opposed to hold monster. 10 plus your wisdom modifier for armor class, your own hit points and hit dice. Interesting, that's different than before, so you don't really gain any hit points. That seems much weaker. 40 foot, and then climb 40 feet, which you need 5th level for. Strength and dex are equal to your wisdom, and then you use your own scores for these. Okay. Sense dark vision, languages you know, equals your proficiency bonus, and then keen senses, you have advantage on wisdom perception checks. Okay, then you have bestial strike, your spell attack modifier to hit, your wisdom modifier. So you're basically just doing spell, as if you're casting a spell that uses everything, but you're not expending a spell slot. And then at 5th level you can do multi-attack, where you make 2 of those. I'm gonna be honest, this doesn't seem all that useful. Maybe you get a little faster. Maybe your armor increases. But it doesn't seem all that useful. Let's look at animal of the sea. Aquatic or semi-aquatic creatures such as crocodile, dolphin, sea, turtle, octopus, shark. Small, medium, or large, aquatic or semi-aquatic. So I'm thinking aquatic, semi-aquatic, and terrestrial, and then winged animal will all become things to look out for. And I'm assuming most of it's the same. 10 plus your wisdom modifier, retain, hit points, hit dice, 20, 40 for swim, okay? The only dex equals your wisdom modifier here, then use your own for everything else. Dark vision 90 feet, so it increases from the animal of the land. Language you know equals your. You can breathe air and water, of course. And then bestial strikes from multi-attack. And then the damage is different. It's 1d6 instead of 1d8. Okay. So I guess these forms would mostly be used if you wanted to not have to expend spell slots or anything to do more damage. Let's go to Animal of the Sky. Interesting. Armor class is lower. Instead of 10 plus wisdom modifier, it's 8. Own hit points and stuff. It could be, it's a winged animal such as a bat, eagle, falcon, pterodon. That's probably another dinosaur that I don't know how to pronounce. And owl. Fly 40, walk 20. Dex only equals your wisdom score. Everything else is normal. And you get even more dark vision going from 60 to 90 to 120. You know your own languages. You get your own personality bonus. And you get flyby, which is nice. This obviously, being the highest level, seems to be the best because you can fly and use flyby. And also, let's see what level is tiny. No, so 2 more levels you'd be able to become a tiny creature, which does weaken your damage, but it's already doing a d4, so damage you deal as the form is half, so you'd be doing next to nothing. But if you want to use this for recon or something, you always could. Definitely seems weaker than the wild shape from before. So here we have the Moon Druid, which, I'll just read this. Druids of the Circle of the Moon draw on the magic of the moon to transform themselves and to guard the wilds. Their order gathers under the full moon to share news and perform rituals. They wander the deepest parts of the wilderness, where they might go for weeks on end before crossing paths with another person, let alone another druid. Changeable as the moon, a druid of the circle might prowl as a great cat one night, soar over the treetops as an eagle the next day, and crash through this undergrowth in bear form to drive off a trespassing monster. The wild is in the druid's blood. Okay, the wild is in the druid's blood. Okay. Combat wild shape. You'll learn magical techniques that allow you to transform quickly and channel your magical protection while transformed, giving you these benefits. Abjuration spells. While you're in wild shape form, you can cast any spell you currently have prepared from the Abjuration School, for the spell doesn't require material. Interesting. So you will be able to get some spells, but only Abjuration, which are generally considered protection spells. And possibly they will be changing healing spells to Abjuration, so you would still be able to heal. Quick attack, you can use unarmed strike as a bonus action. Okay, so you would get, is this while you're transformed? Yes, while transformed. So I would assume Bestial Strike counts as unarmed attack in this case. So you can use your, and then you get the bonus action, transform. So let's see, Circle of the Moon. Combat wild shape. Don't get the extra hit points. Bonus action you could get. Okay. This is good for the new change, and this is of course good. Unarmed strike I'm kind of confused on, if I'm being honest. But anyways. Channeling ancient lunar magic, you imbue your wild shape forms with power from the elemental planes. When you assume a wild shape form, choose one of the following damage types: acid, cold, fire, lightning, or thunder. While in that form, you have resistance to that chosen type, and the form strikes can deal damage of that type rather than its normal type. Would you choose between the types when you are hitting? Oh, okay, so you get resistance to one, and then you can kind of choose what damage you do. For also the sign of the, okay, so flavor. Your fur might flicker if it was flames or something. That is interesting and useful. Doesn't increase the damage, unfortunately, but still interesting. And it would allow you to if you're fighting a fire and water creature, use fire on one and water on the other and not have to be stuck to fire or something like that. And then at 10th level, elemental forces impede your attacks when you do damage. Here's the increase in damage. An extra d6 of the type you chose. And then an extra 2d6 at 17th level. Okay. And then 1,000 forms. I believe this, yep. So you get the elemental part, although it's weaker, because you don't get to choose air elemental, earth elemental, fire elemental, water elemental. 10th, but here it's at 6th. Elemental strike was not, primal strike. Primal strike was completely removed, but then in place of elemental strike, and some things were shifted around. And then we have 1,000 forms. You always have alter self prepared, and you can cast it without expending a spell slot or counting against the number of spells you have prepared, which seems to be the same. So that's the Druid. Overall, I feel that this is definitely a step down in the Druid. I feel like Druids were one of the more powerful classes in 5th edition because of their versatility, especially with subclasses. Because obviously just in the player's handbook, between the moon and the land, moon was definitely more powerful because of how powerful the wild shapes could be, because you would be able to change into more things at lower levels, still doing fair amounts of damage, having that extra HP, which you don't get in this new one. So definitely weakened. Probably still playable. I would imagine they're trying to balance all of this, so it always could change. But yeah, I would say nerf to this new Druid. Alright, now we go to Paladin. Oh, interesting. Primary abilities. Did that say abilities previously? Nope, simply primary ability. So Paladin's going to be more of a focus on both strength and charisma, also being a part of the priest class. So let's look at table. I'm not going to check proficiency bonus. I assume that's all the same. Let's see. Lay on hands, same. But divine sense is not something I see. So they remove that for spellcasting. So now Paladins will get spellcasting at 1st level, unlike 2nd, which I think is also something they said they were going to do. Another thing to note, Paladins get cantrips now. Never had that before. Of course, very few, only 3. We have this column for Channel Divinity, which appears to be very similar to the Wild Shape, or what's the new term? The Channel Nature ability seems to have the same progression. So we have Lay on Hand to spellcasting, Divine Smite, Solid Signal, and Fighting Style. Okay. Then Channel Divinity and Paladin subclass. Okay, so Channel Divinity does not seem to be... It could still be, but not as tied into Paladin subclass. Feat, Extra Attack, Faithful Steed. Interesting. That was not something. Subclass or Protection. You get this level later. Feat, Abjure Foes. Was not an ability previously. Subclass, Radiant Strikes. Not a feature. Feat, Aura of Courage. Okay, it looks like these auras... Aura of Courage... Oh, no, those are there. I'm just missing them. It looks like they flipped, though. Nope, still wrong. Aura of Protection's first, then Aura of Courage. Subclass feature, Restoring Touch, definitely not anything from 5th edition. Feat, or Expansion. Divine Conduit. Interesting. So, one thing to note, in 5th edition, the last ability that a paladin will receive at 20th level is a subclass ability, which is unlike any other class. So obviously they're doing away with that, but that means they have to basically make up a new 20th level ability. And then Feat, Epic Boon. Okay. Let's see. 1d8, 10 plus con. And yep, that all looks the same. Wisdom and Charisma. Athletics. Insight, Intimidation, Medicine, Persuasion, Religion, the same. Simple and martial weapons is the same. No tools. Light, medium, heavy, shields. Interesting they didn't just say all armor, but it doesn't really matter. Chainmail, Holy Symbol, Javelin, Longsword, Priest Pack, Shield. Okay. So first feature is Lay on Hands. Your Blessed Touch can heal wounds. You have a pool of healing that replenishes when you take a long rest, which I believe was the same. Yep, long rest. First sentence. With that pool, you can restore a total number of hit points equal to 5 times your paladin level. You can restore a number of hit points equal to 5 times your paladin level. Yep. Magic action, you touch a creature, which could be yourself. Important note, I don't know if they had that there, but up to their hit point maximum, and then use 5 to remove the poison condition from the creature rather than restoring hit points. That looks to be all about the same. There is no note about not working on undead or constructs in this new version, however. Then we have spellcasting, prepared spellcasting, charisma. All of this looks about the same, just of course you get a level earlier. Divine Smite. When you strike a target, you can channel divinity energy to smite it immediately after you hit with a target with an attack roll using a weapon or an unarmed strike. They added this in. That was not something that was in the original Divine Smite. You had to hit with a weapon. You can spend 1 spell slot to deal radiant damage to the target. The damage is 2d8 for a first level slot, plus 1d8 for each slot above. 2d8 plus 1 slot. So there's no cap at 5d8, and it doesn't appear that it increases for undead or fiend. You can spend it no more than once during your turn. You can't use it on the same. Interesting. So the good thing about Divine Smite previously was that you could use it multiple times per turn if you were able to crit, because it would also double that damage, which it still does here. But you also have to note, it says weapon attack. It doesn't say melee weapon attack. So you theoretically could be shooting a bow and do the damage. But it definitely does weaken it because of the statement that you can only do it once per turn, and you can't use it on the same turn that you cast a spell. Not that they're casting spells often, but that does limit their options. Then we have fighting style, defense feat, or you gain another fighting style feat of your choice. Yep. So like classes of or denominations of feats, and there are the fighting style feat. And you can get them because of although not part of the warrior group, you are basically an honorary member. So we have channel divinity. You get to choose one of the effects, which you can gain more of. You have twice. Get on one back on a short rest, all on a long rest. As a bonus action, you can open your awareness to detect celestial fiends. So this is where Divine Sense comes in. Instead of being a first level ability, it is a 3rd level channel divinity ability. As a bonus action, you can open your awareness to detect celestial fiends and undead for the next 10 minutes, or until you have the incapacitated. It does not say you are incapacitated. It says you have the incapacitated condition. I wonder if that will be a wording change they go along with. You know the location of any creature of those types within 60 feet of yourself, and you know its creature type. Okay? Within the same race, you also detect the presence of any place or object that has been consecrated or desecrated, as with the Hollow spell. Okay? That's about the same, I believe, except the amount of uses changes. It used to be charisma modifier +1. Now it is just channel divinity. Then we have subclass. Feat, extra attack, get an extra attack, faithful steed. You can easily call on the aid of an otherworldly steed. You always have the find steed spell prepared. It doesn't count against the number of spells you can prepare. When you cast a spell, its casting time is an action. You can also cast a spell once with expend. Okay, so I believe find steed used to be maybe a minute or 10-minute long spell. Now you can cast it as an action. So if you were in the middle of battle, needed a horse or something, could get one, hop on, and go back into the fight. Another subclass feature. Now we have Aura of Protection. Okay. You radiate a protective invisible aura that extends 10 feet from you in every direction, but it doesn't extend through total cover. Okay. You and your allies in the aura gain a bonus to saving throws equal to your charisma modifier. Yep. Minimum of 1. If another paladin or creature can benefit from only 1 at a time. That makes sense. Funnily enough, that wasn't listed on this one, but it is now. Then we have feat. Now, add your foes. As a magic action, you can expend 1 use of your Channel Divinity, which I believe at this point is 3, to overwhelm foes with Divine Awe. As you present your holy symbol or weapon, you can target a number of creatures equal to your Charisma modifier, minimum of 1 creature, that you can see within 60 feet of yourself. Each target must make a Wisdom saving throw. On a failed save, the target has a dazed and frightened condition for 1 minute, or until it takes any damage. So I believe dazed was a new condition from the last one, which we will look at the end. And so this looks to be almost a sort of a turn undead, but it's not for undead, it's just for anyone. They can be dazed for 1 minute or until they take damage. Subclass Radiant Strikes. You are so suffused with divine might that your weapon strikes carry supernatural power with them. When you hit a creature with an attack roll using a simple or martial weapon, target deals an extra. Okay. So although you don't get the D8 for Undead and Fiend, at 11th level you always have an extra D8. Nice bit of damage. Feat, Orage of Courage. Immune to the frightened condition. Can't be frightened. And it's suppressed while they're in there. Okay, seems about the same. Then we have subclass feature. When you use your Lay on Hand feature at 15th level, you can also remove 1 or more of the following condition. Okay, extends to more features. Oh, so looking back now, this Radiant Strikes was also improved Divine Smite, where you just get the extra D8. Okay. So nothing really added there. Let's expand. Okay, so just nice to not just have poison, but also blinded, charmed, dazed, deafened, frightened, and paralyzed, or stunned. Feet or expansion extends to 30 feet, which I believe all of them did at 17th or 18th and 18th. So instead of being baked in, it's just over here. Divine Conduit. When you roll initiative, you gain 1 use. Okay, that seems to be a theme, because the Druid had that, where if they had no more nature, or if they could regain 1 of their channel nature abilities. And then feat, and then epic boon. All right, let's look at the subclass, which is devotion. Still have the tenets. Look to be pretty much the same. Okay. Oath spells. Protection from good and evil. And instead of sanctuary, get Shield of Faith. Then we have Zone of Truth and Aid instead of Lesser Restoration. And then completely gone with these. Instead of Beacon of Hope and Dispel Magic, it's Aura of Vitality and Blinding Smite. Interesting, you would automatically get that Smite spell. And then Guardian of Faith and Staggering Smite. Guardian of Faith you did have in 5e, but not Staggering Smite. And then Commune and Flame Strike, those are the same. You can cast 1. Okay, so you can also cast 1 of these without expending a spell slot. But only 1, not 1 for each one, just 1. And you can add these. Interesting. Alright, we also have Sacred Weapon. As a bonus action, you expend 1 use of your Channel Divinity to imbue 1 simple or martial weapon that you're holding with positive energy. For 1 minute, you add your Charisma modifier to attack rolls you make with that weapon. And each time you hit with it, you cause it to deal its normal damage type or radiant damage. Okay. The weapon also emits bright light in 20 feet and dim in 20 feet beyond that, and you can end it as a bonus action. Okay, just a little bit of extra damage. Was that something from before? Sacred Weapon. Oh, yeah. So yeah, looks to be about the same thing. Or at least very similar. Using a Channel Divinity and doing more damage. I think it does say radiant damage here, though. Yeah, so it becomes radiant if you would like. Then we have Smite of Protection, which is not something from 5e. Your Divine Smite now radiates protective energy that allows you and your allies to stay in the fight. Whenever you use your Divine Smite, choose yourself or an ally within 30 feet of yourself. The chosen creature gains temporary hit points, okay, equal to 1d8 plus the level of the spell used for the Divine Smite. So theoretically, if you were to be using a bow and arrow, or be shooting a projectile, and because that can now be smited on, you hit, you do the smite, and you also heal. Of course, you're using a spell slot to do a little bit more damage and the d8 of healing, or temporary hit points. But interesting that is 20 feet or 30 feet from you and not the target. And then we have Aura of Devotion, which is something from here. You and your allies are immune to the charmed condition while you're in the aura of protection. If a charmed ally enters the aura, condition is suppressed. Yep, so that looks to be about the same. Yep, pretty much the same. It does add both, all of them. Notice that the condition is suppressed while they're in there. And we at 14th level instead of 20th, we have Holy Nimbus. As a bonus action, you can imbue your aura of protection with holy power. The aura gains the following benefits for 1 minute or until you end them as a bonus action. 1 minute. Okay. Radiant damage. Whenever an enemy starts its turn in the aura, the creature takes radiant damage equal to your proficiency bonus plus your charisma modifier, or the aura is filled with bright light that is sunlight. Okay. I mean, most people are going to go for the radiant damage unless you're fighting something like a vampire, which is susceptible to specifically sunlight. That's an okay feature, not the greatest. Character feats. So I feel like, although of course smites being lowered is not great, it seems both classes in this this Unearthed Arcana have decreased in power. I don't know whether that's good or bad, but I think they're trying to avoid power creep as much as possible, because noticeably in Tasha's Cauldron of Everything, the subclasses in there are significantly better than the ones, for the most part, in Player's Handbook. So I think they're trying to go back to the base level and not go up to that power creep, but instead go back down to the regular, where they said it with the Player's Handbook years ago. So Epic Boon of Fate, you gotta be 20th level in Major Priest. Increase 1 score by 1 to a max of 30. Interesting, you roll 2d4 on someone else's d20 test, and add or subtract it from their roll. No more than once per turn. But you can have 8 of them, and then you regain 2d4 every long rest. Always very useful to be able to sway the dice like that. Spell Recall, Major Priest, makes sense, because they're the spellcasters. Increase Intelligence, Wisdom, or Charisma by 1. When you cast a spell with a spell slot of 1, 2, 3, or 4th level, roll a d4. If the number of you rolls is equal to the slot level, it isn't expelled. And that is infinitely. So every time you cast a spell, that is very powerful. I would definitely be taking that, because there's always a chance that you don't use it. Now let's see. Smites. Do they count as a spell? Because if they did, you could possibly regain it. Where was it? Divine Smite. It does not count as a spell. Oh, no. Just use a spell slot. I wasn't sure if you'd be able to regain spell slots of smite damage if you were to do this. Now we have Boon of True Sight. 20th level in Priest group, only for the Priest. Increase Intelligence, Wisdom, or Charisma by 1, and you get True Sight out to 6 feet. I mean, True Sight's very powerful, so also useful. Spells. Divine Spell List. Of course, it's a partial list. Okay, if it's different than how it appears in 2014, it has an asterisk. Okay. So I guess the first one is Cure Wounds, so let's go find that. Okay. Oh, and also the primal. I guess I should have just waited and got down here. Banishing Smite is a bonus action, which you take immediately after hitting a creature with a weapon or an unarmed strike. Good. It is self. Horrible. Up to 1 minute. Interesting. Instead of being reduced to 50 hit points or fewer, it just automatically has to make the saving throw. We can always, looks to be pretty much the same, except for the change. Instead of it being 50 hit points or fewer, it's a saving throw, which, depending on the creature, it could be good or bad. Blinding Smite. It's a bonus action, self-verbal up to 1 minute. This is not concentration, and neither was this one. Interesting. 3d8 radiant damage. Constitution throw or be blinded. 3d8. Constitution throw or be blinded. Same thing, looks like. Alright, find familiar. Okay, and this is a ritual spell. And I think part of the reason Cure Wounds was changed. Oh, where was it? Here, it is now Abjuration. I don't remember what it was. I'll check. But I believe it was something else, and I believe the change is to allow... Yes, it was Evocation. So I believe the change is to allow for wild-shaping druids who have that ability to be able to cast it, which makes sense. I'll just read this, or I'll find it. Okay. 1 hour, 10 feet. Okay. Can surface on the okay, and it uses this stat block no matter what, instead of it being an actual creature. Okay. You choose its type, Celestial, Fey, or Fiend, and let's choose an environment. Owl or cat or frog. Okay. Okay, so I believe that was different. I believe it couldn't attack previously, but now it can. But you have now it is can, but now you have to use your reaction on its turn to command it to, essentially. And if you don't, it automatically dodges. Okay, and uses its move to avoid danger. Drops your hit points to miss it with a bonus action, or if you die. Makes sense. See what your familiar sees and hears. What it? That's just okay. Interesting. This is just infinite. There's no limit. Looks like there's no limit on control or in viewing. That is very interesting. So you could just set a creature in your as basically a like an alarm system. Interesting. Okay, let's see. Tiny Celestial, Fey, or Fiend, and you choose when casting a spell and is neutral. 10 plus. I wonder if this is per spell level for the 1 and the 2, or just the 1. I would imagine both, but it's just a little unclear. 2 plus 2 per spell level. Okay. Okay, so depending on land, air, or water, you can either climb, fly, or swim. Makes sense. That makes sense. Dark vision, 60 feet, passive perception, telepathy. Okay, it only has that. This is where that comes in. So it can only understand you when you're within 120 feet. But if you were to, from what I understand, if you were to give it a command, such as go around the keep or your castle and always stay moving unless you see something bad, you could check in every once in a while, or you could tell it to somehow contact you, and then you could look in on it. Okay. But you wouldn't be able to talk to it. If it's water, it can breathe air and water. Makes sense. Experimental escape. When your family drops it instead. Okay. So you can it gets a save. 1 redo, or 1 every long rest. Okay. Scratch. Alright, so it's not doing much. It's 1 plus this spell level of radiant damage. So if you cast this as what is a 4th level spell, it's going to do 2 damage. Yeah. And depending if it's a celestial, fey, or fiend, it'll either do radiant, psychic, or necrotic. Interesting. and then deliver spell. Okay, so this is still something you can do where you can cast a spell through it, as long as it's 120 feet of you. Very interesting. Then we have Find Steed. 10 minutes, 30 feet. VS. Divine. Instantaneous. You gain the service of an otherworldly being, which manifests as a loyal steed in an unoccupied space of your choice within range. This creature uses the otherworldly steed stat block. Okay. And it would replace an old one. It's a large, rideable animal that you get to choose. You choose Celestial, Fey, or Fiend. Shares your initiative and functions as a controlled mount, which is in the rules. And it acts independently if you're incapacitated. If it drops to 0 hit points, or you dismiss it as a bonus action, or if you die, it disappears. Or leaves anything it's carrying. It can okay, so it can be the same or different one. So you could roleplay that as it having the same memories or not. And when you cast it higher, it is just like the other one. Certain things increase. Large, Celestial, Fair Fiend. Choose when casting a spell. 10 plus your spell, plus 1 per spell. Interesting that land is 2, but I wonder if that's interesting. 5 plus 10 per. Okay. You can fly if you cast it at 4th level or higher. So you could have almost a unicorn or a Pegasus or something like that. That's interesting. But of course, I think it's on the defined spell list, but Paladins... Oh, it's a 2nd level spell, but it has to be cast at 4th. And I believe Paladins only have a limited number of those. Stats look better, less intelligent, though, than the Find Familiar. Passive Perception 11 to a mile, but only between you and the steed. Interesting. Bonus. Okay, that's actually interesting. The life bond, where it heals as you heal. Very interesting. That's very useful, actually. Maul, a D8 plus Celestial, Radiant, Psychic, or Neurotic, depending on Celestial, Fey, or Fiend. And it has bonus actions. Phase Step for Fey. Oh, each one has one. Interesting. And they each recharge after a long rest. Okay, so Fey is it can teleport 60 feet away with you. Fiend is it can frighten a creature. And Celestial, it can heal a creature. So, I guess you could say, if it were to touch another creature, being you, it restores hit points. It would also restore its own hit points. That's interesting. I don't know how much use that would have, but Glimmering Smite, is that completely new? I don't recognize that as a spell, and it doesn't seem this does either. Interesting. Bonus action for self concentration up to, this one has concentration. Interesting. The target hit by the strike takes an extra 2d6 damage, and if it has the invisible condition, the condition ends on it. Okay. In addition, until the spell ends, sheds bright light, and all attack rolls against it have advantage. So similar to Fairy Fire. I believe there was a smite spell that did something similar, but I don't remember what it was. Then we have Searing Smite. See if we can find the other one. Okay. First level evocation, bonus action, self-verbal concentration up to a minute. As you hit a target, strike flares, takes an extra d6, and it's on fire, constitution saving throw, or it takes a d6. Okay, see if that's the same. Seems to be. But instead of being able to put it out, like with the old Searing Smite, it's just the constitution saving throw. Spare the Dying. Spare the Dying is now actually useful. So previously, with Spare the Dying, you would cast it and it stabilizes them. They are unconscious still, but they are at 0 hit points and unconscious, stable at 0 hit points. So you stop them from dying, which is useful, but you gain nothing else out of it. So it's not super useful. Spare the Dying, however, if they... Oh, dying is a condition. Interesting. Did I miss that at... I gotta go back now. Because here it said blinded. Okay, no. I wasn't sure if you could use Restoring Touch. I guess you could be adding hit points, but I wasn't sure if that ended the dying condition. Interesting. Dying is a condition now. And it gets 1 hit point, so now it would actually be, I would assume, conscious, awake, and ready to go. That is a great change. Staggering Smite. Okay. 4th level, it is now Evocation, or now, it is now Enchantment, as opposed to Evocation. It's a bonus action, self-verbal, instantaneous instead of concentration up to a minute. As you hit a creature, your strikes pierces with both mind and body, 46, and it must succeed on a saving throw or be stunned. Okay, and I believe stunned is basically what Staggering Smite has. Disadvantage on attack rolls, ability checks, similar to that. But it's not concentration anymore. It just happens. Interesting. Seems like a good change to me. Thunderous Smite, excuse me. Bonus action. Self-verbal, concentration up to a minute is now instantaneous. Basically, it's like a Thunder Wave spell, and pushes them away. Looks to be all about the same, basically, yeah. And maybe not prone, same thing. Definitely focus on the smite spells here, considering paladins are being added. Wrathful Smite, last spell for this. Bonus action, self-verbal, concentration up to a minute. D6 Psychic. See it on Wisdom saving throw or have the Frightened condition. It must repeat, or it can repeat. Okay. Oh, okay. The end of each of its turns, so instead I had to use an action, now it's just automatically. Interesting. Alright, I'll quickly look through here, see if anything looks interesting. Oh, I want to find the dying condition. Let's see. When a player character drops to 0 hit points, that character has the dying condition, which replaces the following rules in the 2014 Player's Handbook. Following conscious death saving throws are being changed. Interesting. And stabilizing a creature. 0 hit. When dying, you experience the following effects. You have 0 hit points. If you gain any hit points by dying, the condition ends on you. Okay, makes sense. Knocked out, you have the unconscious condition. Makes sense. Death saving throws. At the start of each of your turns, you make a death saving throw, a special save that isn't tied to any ability score. You're in the hands of fate now. Roll a d20. If the roll is 10 or higher, you succeed. Otherwise, you fail. Success or failure has no effect by itself. The successes and failures also don't need to be consecutive. Keep track of both until you collect 3 of a kind, the effects of which are described below. When this condition ends on you, reset the number of successes. Yep, okay. That's regular death saving throw rules. Rolling a 1 or a 20. When you make a death saving throw and roll a 1 on the d20, it counts as 2 failures. That's the same. If you roll 20, you regain 1 hit point. Okay, makes sense. 3 failures. 3rd failure, you die. Yep, that's the same. 3rd success, you regain 1 hit point. The condition ends on you, but you're still unconscious. And you start a short rest. Interesting. So I know previously this was a small rule that I had to look up for this one time I was DMing, and it was very important. If you are unconscious, you should, or if you had died, but you succeeded in saving throws, you should immediately roll a d4. Because after you roll that, after that many hours, you regain 1 hit point. And you are conscious, I believe is how it works. Or that's how long it takes you to be conscious. But here, you automatically start a short rest, which is about 1 hour, I believe. And you remain unconscious till you regain any hit points or until another creature uses an action to administer first aid to you. Okay. And then damage. If you take any damage, you suffer 1 death saving throw failure. If you suffer a critical hit, you instead suffer 2. That looks to all be the same. Interesting. So, interesting that they add the dying condition. I wonder if some things will just say, such as power word kill, you fail the saving throw, you have the dying condition. I like that change. That's inspiration. Sort of heroic advantage. A lot of this looks to be about the same. Oh, short sword is a simple weapon rather than a martial weapon. That always felt weird to me. Long swords, great swords, all martial weapons make sense. But the short sword is a martial weapon? I felt like it should have been simple. Alright, well, that looks to be all of it. And I'm, for the most part, okay with what happened. I understand some people who have played much more paladins and paladins and druids might be upset. I understand completely. Druid definitely got nerfed. Paladin, I believe, got nerfed a little bit. Of course, it's everyone's preference, but let me know what you guys think.